So we're going to start with a mindfulness practice. And this is totally duplicatable, something that you can do in your own lives. So this is just a present moment awareness pause. I like to call it a power pause. And we'll just do this for about 90 seconds. Now we're gonna have 3 other sessions. We'll do this every time. This first time I'll guide you through, and then the next time we do it, we'll just kind of do it in silence at the end of the session. We'll do the same practice at the end. So just find a comfortable position. If you're sitting, great. If you're standing, great. Just making sure your limbs are uncrossed. There's no tension in your shoulders. And just letting go of anything that might be in your hands, and let your body come to some form of stillness and quiet. And you can either close your eyes or you can gaze downward. And just take a few deep breaths. You can make a sound if you like to, as you breathe in and breathe out. So just allowing all of the activity of the day to just go into the background of your awareness. Bringing your attention to the soles of your feet and just feeling the bottom of your feet inside your shoes, or maybe they're touching the floor. And now feeling the whole body, allowing that attention to envelop your whole body, feeling the edges of your body from head to toe. And there might be all kinds of movements and tension and activity in the body, and that's okay. Just being aware of it, being curious, noticing what's here. And now bringing your attention to your breath, wherever you feel your breath the most. Maybe the tip of your nose, maybe your chest, maybe your belly. And so wherever you find your breath, just follow a few breaths here. And if you notice that your mind is getting caught up with something else, there's stuff to do, there's sounds, there's activity, just know that this is normal. The mind's attention will get pulled again and again. And when this happens, without judgment, being gentle with yourself, just bring your attention back to this breath. And as we bring this power pause to a close, taking a deep breath, really feeling the breath. Maybe you can let your shoulders rise up to your ears as you breathe in, and just drop them and sigh as you breathe out. And just remembering that this capacity to come into the present moment in this way is always available to us. And before we jump back into the MO of how we usually are when we're not present, just noticing what's showing up for you in your heart space. And if you could share that in the chat, where are you right now? What's happening in your heart and mind right now? What are you feeling? What are you sensing in your body as we transition out of the practice and back into the session? So I'll share, I am feeling a little bit more grounded. I was not sure. This is the first time we're doing something like this. I'm not sure what the response was going to be. So a little bit of anticipation at first, and now I'm just here. I'm just here and happy to be here with all of you. Right, so continuing to share in the chat. So Anna says she feels calm, curious. Kelly, Laura. Yeah, stopping the multitasking. So just what's here for you. And keep the comments coming while we just kind of feel the chat. I'm going to share my screen. My name is Nellie Bizaram if you're just joining. And my I represent Aham Education, which is a not-for-profit organization that serves children, families, adults, everybody really. Our mission is to touch 1 million people by 2025, providing all sorts of mindfulness-based, mind-body, resiliency, compassion, emotional intelligence tools. And we work in South Florida, Latin America, and the Caribbean. And I'm proud to be partnering up with Children's Services Council, who I also do mindfulness trainings for on their regular training calendar. And to just be part of the work in Broward County, the amazing work that we're doing to bring mindfulness into schools and into community organizations, and really just using this as a tool to enhance our culture of well-being. Yeah, and so I have this image here, right? For me, this image represents mindful parenting. And I'll tell you why. It's because, you know, you got the washing machine with the clothes hanging out. There's clearly a to-do list there. The computer is on there. Maybe mom is working or in school. And yet there's this ability to be present, right? So what strikes you as you look at this image? What strikes you? What do you relate to in this image about being a parent? And what for you, just what shows up for you in general around being a parent as you look at this image? Does it resonate with you? Does it not resonate with you? If it resonates with you, what is it about this image that resonates with you? Yeah, so just what shows up for you as you look at this image of this parent engaging with her child?
Courtney has setting priorities. Christina has calm in the storm. Andrea has so many things to accomplish, but the main priority is the little one.
Yeah.
Robin has prioritized family time. Ulrika has a never-ending list of things to do. And Robin has the work will always be there. Anna has it's about prioritizing what is most important.
Yeah. So the most important thing is the most important thing, right? How many of you feel like sometimes you lose sight of that? I certainly do, right? I get caught up in, my kids are 2 teen boys, and right now one is a senior, and there are times when I feel really pressured to between going through the process of college applications and all of that, or just taking care of the house, or trying to be a good mom, but also wanting to take care of myself. Like, it just feels like so much and it's so overwhelming. And I would say there are many days of the week that I just feel like I'm a bad parent. Like, I know I'm not a bad parent, but I feel that way sometimes. And it's because it's a challenge to juggle it all, right? And sometimes forget what the most important thing is when everything seems to be just as important or just as, you know, demanding our time. So thank you for sharing your responses. And so I really want us to start off, and so these are the intentions for today's practice, for today's session, is to explore the meaning of parenting, to explore and understand how mindfulness practice can impact the parent-child relationship, and how can we, what is the one thing that we're going to commit to practice between this session and the next? And even if you don't come back to the next session, what is something that you're going to take away and actually use, so that the time that you've invested in yourself here turns into something real in your life. And maybe it's something you're already doing. So why parents? Who is a parent, right? Who is a parent and what is a parent? So the word parent means, I looked it up, it means to bring forth, like the age-old meaning, the etymology of the word parent means to bring forth. And I found that really interesting because as I was thinking about what that really means, it doesn't say to drag forth, it doesn't say to pull forth, it doesn't say to push forth. For me, it has this kind of quality of guiding, like almost like walking alongside, right? Maybe one step ahead a little bit, but bringing forth, and it's forward movement, right? The other thing that really resonated for me in that definition was this idea of growing together. And that's really what at the heart of mindful parenting, is this understanding that we are all imperfect and growing. And this relationship, this sacred relationship with another person could be, it could be our child, or it could be just someone that we're taking care of, right? But it's this sacred relationship. And what is there for both of us to learn so that we continue to awaken ourselves and to be the people that we want to be. So who is a parent? So a parent could be, you could be a parent if you have your own biological children, adopted children, or just, you can be an auntie or an uncle, right? And I grew up in the Caribbean, and like everybody's your auntie and your uncle. So we had a lot of parents. So a parent is really anybody who is caring for another human being, who's caring for their growth and development. So in these sessions, we're really going to look at parenting in a broader perspective, because there's so many people who play the role of a parent: a caregiver, a guardian, mentors, role models, right? And some of these other questions, we're going to continue to kind of sit with these through this session and the remaining sessions. So thinking about what is it that a child really needs, right? What is it that they need? What are some things? And if you have reactions to any of these questions, please feel free to type your responses in the chat. What does a child need? What does a parent need? What do we need? What is the purpose of parenting? I talked a little bit just now about that process of awakening ourselves and helping them to awaken themselves, to find our center, and to be able to tap into that part of ourselves where we can grow, where we can be resilient, and we can respond to life's challenges, no matter what it is. And how is it going for you? How is it going for you? And that's really what I want to hear from you. How is it going for you? How do you feel about your parenting? And if you're not a parent, just why are you here? Like, what is it? What is the reason why you're here? And any of you can either unmute yourself and share, or you can type your response in the chat. So Mikhail says, child needs nurturing, discipline, guidance, and us as parents need the patience to provide all this, and self-care to reload and keep going. Yeah. And to be a better parent, Yeah. Courtney says to pass along info and guidance to the parents I work with. Yeah, definitely. So for me, like I mentioned in the beginning, I have good days and bad days. But I am learning that it is okay to be vulnerable with my children. In fact, when I am vulnerable, it actually helps, because then they see it, that I'm a human being, and we can have a conversation about what it means to be human. And that's more real for them than trying to be perfect or trying to cover up when I make a mistake. It creates more space for authentic connection. So we're going to move to the next slide, and we're actually going to go a little bit more into what is mindfulness, and how we can use this approach, this way of being, because that's really what it is. It's a way of being, and apply it to our role as parents. So just in the chat again, and Andrea says, I feel like I can do better with my expectations, patience levels, and lean in. It's hard right now as a parent with all the unknown, absolutely, to remain optimistic but realistic and embrace the changes that I don't understand. I don't feel good about parenting right now. I'm right there with you, Jennifer. Yep, I can totally relate to that. I think a lot of us can relate to that. I'm here because I have special needs children and a special needs husband, and I find myself losing sight of critical parenting skills in the monotony of working full time. Yeah. Before you know it, the day is gone. And how many of us think back on all the things we could have done to connect more with our family that day? And so it's this idea of starting again and again, teaching homeschool full time and assisting with my husband and with his inability to do many things. Thank you for sharing that, Christina. So there's a lot of challenge in the room right now, right? And I just want to really honor that and just, take a breath and just be, just kind of pat yourself on your back that you chose to show up here today, to learn more and to really get connected to yourself again, because that's what this is about. So I'm going to show a video in a moment that is, I showed this video yesterday and folks liked it, so I thought I'd show it again today. And it's a video that explains what mindfulness is. Now, some of us here probably already know what mindfulness is. We maybe have a practice or we've been exposed to it. So what I invite you to do is to just have a beginner's mind, right? And just see if we can see this again differently for the first time. So there are 3 components of mindfulness that really helps in understanding this practice and this way of being. And one is intention. So at the beginning, we were called upon to kind of gauge our intention. So the intention has to do with how and who we want to be in the present moment, right? And we get to make that choice, and it's within our control. The attention has to do with how are we using our mental and emotion, our heart and mind, to give attention to what is here in the present moment, whether it's inside of us or outside of us. And attitude has to do with how the attitude that we bring to this, to what is present. So are we open and curious or not? Or judgmental or non-judgmental, right? And mindfulness is about having an open, curious, non-judgmental attitude. So without further ado, I'm going to share this video.
You may have heard this word mindfulness. It's become something of a buzz phrase of late. I'm going to give you one simple, serviceable definition, which is this. Mindfulness is the ability to know what's happening in your head at any given moment without getting carried away by it. Imagine how useful this could be. Just as an example, you're driving down the road and somebody cuts you off in traffic. How do you normally react? I think most of us, we normally react by having a thought, which is, I'm pissed. And then what happens next? You immediately, habitually, reflexively inhabit that thought. You actually become pissed. There's no buffer between the stimulus and your reaction. With just a little bit of mindfulness, in that same situation, you might notice my chest is buzzing, my ears are turning red, I'm having a starburst of self-righteous thoughts, I'm getting angry. But you don't necessarily have to act on it and chase that person down the road, screaming at them with your kids in the back of the car thinking you've gone nuts. Now, you might be thinking, don't I need to get angry sometimes? Aren't I justified? I would say yes, but probably not as much as you think. The proposition here is not that you should be rendered by mindfulness into some lifeless, non-judgmental blob. The proposition is that you should learn how to respond wisely to things that happen to you rather than just reacting blindly. And that, my friends, is a superpower. How do you get it? The way to get it is through meditation. I believe that meditation and mindfulness are the next big public health revolution. In the 1940s, if you told somebody you were going running, they would have said, "Who's chasing you?" But then what happened next? The scientists swooped in, they showed that physical exercise is really good for you, and now all of us do it, and if we don't, we feel guilty about it. And that's where I think we're headed with mindfulness and meditation. It's going to join the pantheon of no-brainers like brushing your teeth, eating well, and taking the meds your doctor prescribed for you. Let me just close by saying, mindfulness is not going to solve all of your problems. It's not going to render your life a nonstop parade of unicorns and rainbows. Nonetheless, this is a superpower and one that is accessible by you immediately.
So, what reactions do you have to that video? What's coming up for you as you look at that video? Anything? You can share in the chat, or you can just unmute yourself and speak. Absolute truth, says Mikhail. I need to develop my practice more, says Andrea. Yeah. So we're going to do a practice now. So we got a little bit of a teaser. If you probably were not exposed to mindfulness before, didn't have a clear definition in your mind. And now we're going to practice. And what I invite you to do is to notice, remember those three things that I mentioned. Your attention, I'm going to be guiding your attention. I'm going to be guiding your attitude a little bit to come back to that open, curious attitude. And just watch your intention and watch your mind, how it just be curious like a scientist, okay? Because we tend to sit a lot these days, we're going to do this standing up. So I'm going to invite you now, if you want to sit and do this in your chair, that's fine too. But we're going to incorporate a little bit of movement. So we're going to do a little bit of movement at first, and then we're going to pause at the end, okay? So as long as you can see me, that's fine. So just coming to a standing posture where your feet are comfortable, maybe about hip width distance apart, and just feel your feet. Feel the weight of your body as you stand. And just allowing your hands to dangle at your side, so just not holding anything, just free of any objects. And notice how the body is right now. Maybe there is some tension in different places. Just scanning your body and becoming fully present with the interior of your body. So you might want to scan from your feet, going up through your lower legs, softening your knees, aware of your hips, noticing perhaps if your weight is evenly distributed, or are you standing with your weight more to one side? And then allowing your attention to travel up through your abdomen and your lower back all the way up to your shoulders. Arms are at your sides. And now just aware of your head and neck and your body as a whole. Now becoming aware of your breathing. So wherever you feel your breath the most, maybe it's in your nose or your belly or your chest. If you'd like to, you could put a hand on your belly just to feel the physical sensation of the breath. And if you'd like to, you can also expand your belly on the inhalation and contract on the exhalation, choosing to breathe in through the nose. And if you'd like to, breathing out through your mouth. So just playing with different things here. different ways of paying attention. And now we're going to incorporate just a few movements. So the next time you breathe in, just let your arms come up over your heads and just stretch. Extend your hands. So I am clasping my fingers and pushing palms up. This is comfortable for you. Feel free to do that, or just modify it based on what your body needs. And so the key here is not really to focus on the stretching, but really just focusing on the sensations. What is the body saying to you right now? And then on an exhalation in slow motion, just really slowly lowering the arms down and noticing how that feels. On the next in-breath, let your arms float up to your sides and extend on either side of your body like a T. And just let them hang here. Let your shoulders be without unnecessary effort, unnecessary resistance, just softening them. And allowing your breath to flow all the way into any areas where you feel the body activated. So maybe the arms, the fingers, the shoulders. Allowing your breath to flow freely. And then on an exhalation, very slowly lowering your arms, being curious. Noticing what the mind wanders, bringing the attention back to the breath and to the sensations in the body. Inhaling, bringing your shoulders up to your ears and just squeezing here and holding for a moment. And then exhaling through your mouth and dropping your shoulders. Inhaling. We'll do this 2 more times. And then exhaling. 1 more time. So just the 3rd time, if you'd like to, you can clench your fists and really tighten the muscles in your arms. And just hold your breath here and then release, exhale, drop, sigh. And so now you can either choose to remain standing or you can take your seat again, and we're going to continue the awareness exercise. And so either choosing to close your eyes, or if they're open and that's more comfortable, that's totally fine. Just lower your gaze so that there is a lower and soften your gaze if choosing to keep your eyes open. And as we did at the beginning of the session, beginning to just gather your attention at the soles of your feet. And noticing how it feels to be sitting in a chair or whatever surface that you're on. Noticing the points where the weight of the body is felt. Noticing the gentle pressure of clothing on the skin. Or maybe the temperature of the air around your face and hands. Aware of smell, aware of taste. Aware of the breath now. Just resting your attention on this in-breath. Nowhere to go, nothing to do, nothing to achieve, just noticing the breath, just as it is. And if the mind wanders, just gently, without judging yourself, bringing your attention back when you notice this happening. And now I'm just allowing your attention to go to the sense of sound. So opening up your listening and just hearing the sounds around you without favoring anything, just hearing sounds. And now allow your listening to run out to the furthest sound. And now let your listening join the silence. So the silence between sounds, containing sounds, just resting in that silence for a few more moments. This is your awareness. And as we transition, just a thought that the practice of being present and aware really never ends. What we focus on might shift. We might transition now into focusing on this presentation or whatever is in front of us, but the quality of awareness, we can come back to this quality of awareness again and again whenever we want to. And so just if whatever is showing up for you now as we transition, if you like to, you can open your eyes if they were closed and maybe create a little movement in the body to let it know that we're coming back to our session. And if you'd like to put your video on, that would be fantastic. I'd love to see some faces. And seeing some comments coming in. So really want you to be invite you to be grounded in what is present for you now. So let's try our best to just not yet go into analyzing what we experience and just stay with the experience. So what showed up for you? The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Feeling the pains on the top of my neck and my shoulders, like the awareness of that being there, I guess from the stress of working, sitting down, and all the other stuff going on. So just feeling it. It was kind of like numbed out.
Thanks, Andrea. Yeah. Feeling that. I definitely always feel it in my shoulders. What else is here? What else are we noticing? Shoulder tension. Yep. Did anyone notice a lot of mind wandering? Took a while to center. Yes, quiet room with noise. Tingling sensations. Yeah. Anyone feel anxious or bored? What's happening here? I got stuff to do. Did it feel strange to stop and do nothing? So Jennifer's like, nope, I'm totally fine stopping. Yeah, the mind wanders and we have to keep bringing ourselves back. I have keep the comments coming. I'm going to share my screen because I have a little graphic that I think might resonate with some of you. So the autopilot, right? How many of you feel like your mind was doing what this image here on the left is representing, with all the little bubbles around it? Anybody notice that? You can raise your hand or you can give me a reaction with one of the icons. Anybody notice that happening for them? Yeah. Mind wandering. Need this to have self-care. Yeah. Okay. So this is normal. This is normal. This is, so two people have their hands raised. Christina, go ahead.
Yes, I do. I have a hard time just stopping, especially in the evening, how to just turn off this. With everything going on, just the everyday of the next day, just preparing for the next day. That's all I'm always about, just preparing for the next day and the next day, what is going to happen next week. I need to get this done. I need to get that done. And it's just, sometimes it's overwhelming, especially at night when you're trying to go to sleep to start the next day.
Yeah. What was it like for you to have this, to just this moment and do the exercise?
It's kind of hard when you have a 3-year-old running around and dogs running around. Then worrying about, then something pops up and you're in the middle of something and then something else just distracts you. You're not done with one activity or one chore. Then you have to jump on right away over to the next. And then at the end of the night, it's like, I didn't even get anything done because I'm still worrying about getting the, kids ready for the next day. Making sure that I have everything for the next day. That's the hardest part right now.
Yeah. I feel you. I think we can all relate to that. Thank you for sharing that. Hamster on a wheel, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Then just and it's just the task just every day just gets longer and longer, and it's like I'm trying to scratch each task off, and it just and it's a how do I say it? It's a good feeling when I get something done and that I've been trying to get done for over the weeks, and now that school started, it's just, that's the biggest stressor for me right now. It's just making sure that the kids are going to be okay. Am I going to get a call from school? Every time my phone rings, I go into a panic. Or if I see a missed call, that's.
Yeah. So it sounds like there are a lot of thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like they're pulling you, right? The
Mm-hmm.
thought and
I'm being pulled in every angle.
yeah, it's pulling you, and it's kind of like what happens when we are constantly, that's, the thoughts are going to be there. So mindfulness is recognizing, first seeing what you just described. So that's huge, to be able to articulate that and to be aware of it. And so what the practice can help us to do over time, we're not going to change the thoughts from coming in. It's not about pushing them away either. It's not about quieting the mind necessarily, although that can probably happen over time, the more we practice. It's not going to change the 3-year-old that you have or the circumstances. It's certainly not going to change COVID, right? However, we can build the capacity, or we already have the capacity. We can kind of nurture that capacity that we have to be in what John Kabat-Zinn calls the full catastrophe of life, and somehow find some degree of stillness and solace, and just like you said, attend to it one thing at a time, one moment at a time. And it takes practice. So at first it could feel like, when we sit still, like there's a lot going on. And so that is an indication that you're doing something right. Otherwise you wouldn't see that, you wouldn't feel that. So it is totally, not only is it okay to feel and see that, it is very normal to experience that when we're practicing mindfulness. And it's probably the reason why we practice, so that we could be more attuned to what's going on inside of us, that we may not take a moment to stop and notice during the day. And in the next session, we're going to talk about how that creates stress in the body and in our lives, and what we can continue to do to work with that. So today we're just scratching the surface, but it's definitely, it's definitely the MO. So on the screen, I have autopilot versus mindful. This is thus a teen image. This is probably what our kids are experiencing, right? They got their headphones in. They're just thinking about all the stuff they have going on. They're stressed out about school. Some like virtual school, some don't. There's just a lot, and not being able to see their friends. So they're facing a lot too, no matter what the age is, right? So, that is somehow, no matter what is happening in our outer world, we're always going to be kind of experiencing this, right? So mindfulness is really, this is a definition and a modified version of John Kabat-Zinn's definition. Mindfulness is also heartfulness. It's not just being in the head all the time. It's actually whole being awareness, right? It's aware of our bodies. It's aware of our heart space and our mental activity. In many Eastern cultures, the word for mind and heart is the same. And so there's this kind of sense that when we experience an emotion, there's something going on in the mind that we can also pay attention to. There are definitely connections to thoughts there. And science is now showing that the heart, mind, and gut, the brain, the heart, and the gut actually have the same brain cells. And so it's really interesting, because when we become aware with our whole being and we feel that alignment, that's where we really can enter a space of being our full selves, right? And of being able to respond instead of react. So mindfulness is the awareness that arises from paying attention in the present moment on purpose. That's the intention part, right? Non-judgmentally and with an open, curious heart and mind. That's the attitude part. So we have the attention, the intention, and the attitude. So it's not accidental, right? Athletes experience this when they're in the zone, when they're in the moment, right? So you can experience this accidentally, but we're talking about intentionally practicing this as a skill, the same way you would go to the gym, which we're not doing much of these days, but the same way you would do some kind of fitness routine, as they showed in the video, to be able to cultivate this skill. In the same way, we can do these practices like the one we just did, like the one that we did in the beginning. And what we know is that it changes the way that our brain works. It actually, there's the studies, your fMRI scans that show gray matter density increasing in the brain. That shows how the prefrontal cortex is the area right behind our forehead. So if you just touch your forehead, that area in the center behind there, that's the part of your brain that governs your ability to focus, pay attention, plan, organize information, make decisions, have empathy and compassion. And it's the space that we want for our children, that we want that part of their brain to be functioning optimally, because how many times do we and their teachers say, pay attention? So this is teaching them how, and teaching us how to pay attention and how to enter a space in ourselves where we can, with awareness, have a choice about what we experience and what we want to experience, or make a choice about what is in our present moment experience. This is a graphic that just shows what I was describing earlier, that your head, heart, and your gut really are connected. So I would like to show you another video by Dr. Dan Siegel that talks about the hand model of the brain. I want you to really pay close attention. And what I invite you to do is to just, when he's demonstrating the hand model, I would like to invite you to do the same thing so that you can remember it. Because it really explains what's happening in our brain when we have a moment of reactivity or when we're overwhelmed. And it's describing what's happening in our child's brain as well, okay? And how mindfulness can help.
This is a very useful model of the brain. And when we can actually see in front of us what's going on in the brain, then we can change what the brain does. So let me walk you through very basically what happens in this brain and the structures in it. And it goes like this. The spinal cord comes up representing the wrist, and then you have coming up into the skull, the brain stem and the limbic area, which work together to help regulate arousal and your emotions and the way you have a fight, flight, freeze response. These are below the cortex, the limbic and brainstem areas, and the cortex is this higher part of the brain that allows us to perceive the outside world, to think and reason. And this frontmost part of the brain, right behind your forehead, so the person's oriented like this, is actually the part that regulates the subcortical, limbic, and brainstem areas. This regulation is very important because sometimes we can have all sorts of things happen in our life. We're tired, we're exhausted, someone pushes a particular emotional button, and we can flip our lids. So rather than being tuned in and connected and balanced and flexible, we can lose all of that flexibility, even lose moral reasoning, and act in ways that are terrifying to others, including our children. Now, you can actually bring yourself back online and come back to the high road and make a repair with your child, and that's important to explain to them. And you can also use this hand model of the brain to explain to children, even as young as 5 and 6, how to understand when their emotions are rising up from the brainstem and limbic areas here, and how it's overriding the prefrontal area and making it so they may be about to flip their lids. So I've had kids come tell me that they're about to go flip their lids and they need a break. They need a timeout. And by even just naming that, they can tame it. And that's the power of using the hand model for ourselves and our children to help us all make sense of what goes on in the emotional communication that we have in the course of day-to-day life.
So that is a very short video by Dr. Dan Siegel. And I highly recommend, if you like to read about this, would like to read more about the brain science of working with children, with teens, he has several books. The one for teens is called Brainstorm. There's another one that's called Whole Child Parenting. He has a few books that are out that talk more about mindfulness and how it impacts the brain. The most recent one is called Aware. And one is called Mindsight. He's written so many books and he's all over YouTube. So you can find Dr. Dan Siegel. I'll type his name in here, and I am a fan. And he's been to South Florida a couple times as well, talking about these ideas and how we can use mindfulness to really bring our thinking brain back online. So that naming it to tame it is one way. So if I feel something, which is why after we did the practice, I asked to share, what did you notice? Naming it can also help to tame it, because the minute we name it, our thinking brain comes back online, right? And the more our thinking brain comes back online intentionally, the more we do that throughout the day, we're building that brain muscle. The other thing that helps to bring our thinking brain back online is mindfulness. Because when we become aware, even if we're not saying it out loud, we're noticing and naming everything that's in our experience. So we might be scanning the body and we notice in the shoulders, oh, shoulders tense. Thinking brain comes back online. So it doesn't mean that you have to get calm before your thinking brain comes back online or before you're able to get to a space of being able to function. Just the act of being aware gives us access to the ability to then calm ourselves down with time. It doesn't always happen immediately. when in the case of people, of those of us, we've all experienced some form of trauma, some more than others. For post-traumatic stress disorder or intense trauma, these practices do work. However, there are modifications. We tend to use shorter practices. There are a whole range of modifications just to ensure that we stay within a zone of safety. That's a simplified explanation. And so these practices can help all of us, whether we are, you know, just using the practice for self-care and just to kind of have good health and wellness practice, or whether we're using this in a more therapeutic setting or as part of our mental health plan. There's so many applications of mindfulness. We're just scratching the surface and looking at it through the lens of a parent. Anything else coming up for anyone around the video? Anything that struck you as you were learning about the hand model of the brain? I'm going to move into the last part of our session. And we're going to explore, what is this mindful parenting? So now that we've explored what is a parent, what is mindfulness, I thought it would be really cool to share this poem with you. And you may have seen this before. It is one of my favorites, and I think it really captures the essence of what it means to be not just a parent, but a mindful parent, what it means to build an awakened family. And it's called On Children by Khalil Gibran. I'll read it aloud, and I invite you to read through it. And if you have something to write with, that would be great. If you could just jot down what really, really resonates with you. And I'd like us to kind of share afterwards our impressions or just what our takeaways are. So it goes like this. Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you, for life goes not backward, nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which your children, as living arrows, are sent forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite, and he bends you with his might, that his arrows may go swift and far. Let your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness. For even as he loves the arrow that flies, so he loves also the bow that is stable. So there's a lot there to unpack. I'm going to keep this up on the screen. Actually, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment because I need to change something here. There we go. I'm going to put it back up. So, and you can Google this and find it on the internet. What is something in this poem that really just touched your heart? Something that really touched your heart when you read it, either because it resonated or it's something you know on a deep level and you wish you would do more of, or you never quite saw it that way before. Anything that touched your heart. I'd really like to hear from from you. You can share in the chat, or you can just unmute yourself and speak. And so while we wait for folks to respond, oh, here we go. You are the bows from which your children as living are sent forth. A beautiful way to say we are guiding them to independence. Yeah. Children are not your children. Yeah, we feel like they belong to us, don't we? They almost feel like our property, right? Strive to be like them. This idea that we can learn from them, really beautiful.
Hello.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, no, to me, what it strikes me, the poem, and this is something that all parents, we all think our children belong to us and we're raising them for us, but in reality, we're not raising them for us. And the poem is very clear on that. We're just giving them shelter, and feeding them and just doing the best we can as parents, giving them an education, giving them the tools for the future, but in reality they're going to become their own human being. That's how I interpret the poem.
Yeah, and maybe they already were their own human beings from the moment they were born.
Exactly. Or exactly, they already are who they are, and you can guide them, but you can't mold them into the person you want them to be, because they already are the person. They already are that person.
I mean, there's a whole nurture nature debate, but essentially, one of my mentors, Dr. Wade Dyer, would say, guide and step aside, guide and step aside. He wrote a beautiful book on parenting called What Do We Really Want for Our Children? I highly recommend it. We're here to guide them through this life, and they will need their own experiences. Absolutely. Yeah.
Hi, it's Emily.
Go ahead.
Hello.
Oh,
Yeah, hi. So based on what the last speaker just said, and not speaker, but the last person within the class with me just said, and since you were the speaker, and also based on the biblical aspects of it, that we are the custodians, we are the guardians to the children, because they come through us, but they're not really ours. We are the guardians. So, and as she just said, we're supposed to we raise them the way they're supposed to be, and they're not. We cannot raise them for us, because we got to raise them to fit into society. We got to raise them to be a productive citizen. We got to raise them that when they meet other people, they know how to socialize, how to behave, that there are certain expected behaviors. So we can't raise our children for us, because if that's the case, we would definitely have problems. And I think that's one of our major problems as parents. We raise our kids for us, and not thinking that they have to be a more broader way of raising our kids so they can fit in. They can not just fit in, but when they go at some other homes, let's visit somebody's home, they know how to behave. They can't behave the same way they behave in their home to be in somebody else's home. Like if you custom jumping on your couch in your parents' home, you don't come out and jump on my couch. We could have a problem. So parents need to raise the kids that when they come out, they can function effectively in the community.
Yeah. We're raising humans for the world. Thank you. And that Caribbean accent, I'm loving every minute of it.
I'm Trinidadian.
Yeah, so am I.
Yes, I heard it.
I know you heard it. So Laura wants to say something. And then I'll read the chats.
Hi, yeah, the part that I think resonated for me is that it says, you may give them your love, but not your thoughts. And I think so many of us, in line with what the other two ladies were saying, is that, we may, sometimes we want to use our children as kind of like reflections of ourselves. And then we can put all of our ideas and aspirations and expectations on our children. Often what we weren't able to accomplish, we say, okay, let me put all of this on you. And I think that's really, a burden for children. And we have to recognize that our lives are our own lives, our thoughts are our own thoughts, and we have to let go to let our children blossom and be who they're going to become.
Yeah. And we think we know, but someone here says, Mikhail says, for life goes not backward. We don't know what forward looks like. We really don't. You know, thank you for sharing that. Christina says, the stable bow, we need to be stable. So it's okay if the laundry isn't done. It's okay if there are dishes in the sink. We got to be stable. Stable doesn't mean that the life around us is perfect. Stable means that we can stand still in the uncertainty and we can stand still in the imperfection. I have had to learn to allow dishes to be in the sink and not lose my mind, that, or feel like I don't have it together because the house is dirty, or because, you know, women tend to, I don't know, I feel like we tend to go to that, like we tend to see that as a reflection of who we are in some way, and it really isn't. Because as long as we are stable and there for them, it goes back to that first image. The most important thing is the most important thing. Someone else said something about, you know, striving, there were a couple comments about striving to be like them, right? What is it about the quality of a child that really we might want to be more, to strive to be more like them? Anybody want to say more about that?
I wanted to share that to me what stuck out on the poem was that part where it says, for they have their own thoughts. Because a lot of times when I'm really listening to my children, and not just their words but their actions, I want to be more like them, because I realize as I become an adult, I lost a lot of that part of, you know, who I was as a child, which are so, you know, they're so pure, you know, that even, you know, and my kids are already like teenagers. And I'm talking about my teenager ones, not my adult one, because I have an adult one.
Yeah.
But when thinking about how my teenage kids, you know, talk and their actions, I'm like, wow, I wish I could be like that again. Because sometimes like we're so judgmental in other people and we criticize or we see the bad, but they tend to see more of the positive in things, and it kind of enlightens me, and I strive to be like that. You know, so sometimes we think that our kids are supposed to strive to be more like us, but we need to kind of sometimes step back and see the goodness in them that we could get from them. And that's what stuck out to me from that poem, and that's how I feel in my, you know, a lot, very often when I listen to them or see them in action.
That's beautifully put. And that kind of segues into what I would like to share next. You said it enlightens you. Children, someone wrote that they're genuine, they're fun, they understand they understand the meaning of the word joy. They're joyful, and the younger they are, the more naturally present they are. So this goes back to mindfulness. We can actually learn mindfulness just from looking at young children, especially. They live in the moment. There's this innocence and this real connection to just life itself and to just what's here. They're not worrying about the bills. They're not worrying about yesterday. When they're sad, they're totally sad. When they're happy, they're totally happy. And so in our own process of reawakening ourselves and our own personal development, a lot of it is just undoing the conditioning that we experience from childhood into adulthood by just observing our own children, observing how they can let things go, observing how when they're sad, they can just be fully sad and not cover it up with something else. Just their natural way of being. So there's something really powerful when we apply this way of paying attention, of being present with our children, that these qualities that we want to embody, we get just from being with them. And it reminds us to fully be ourselves, and it also reminds us to honor them and to really hear them, because sometimes what we're trying to undo in ourselves, we're doing it to them. And then by the time they're adults, then they have to go through the same process we have to go through to undo some of the habits that we've acquired that we don't want to have it, and I'm talking about just mental and emotional patterns, right? That we've picked up along the way that don't serve us. So thank you all for sharing all of those comments, really. And I hope you can see this slide clearly because the font is a little bit light. But the mindful parent, and we're going to explore this further in the next 3 sessions. There are a few elements, and this is kind of an adaptation. There's a book called Mindful Discipline. There's by Shauna Shapiro. There's another book a few books by one of my favorite authors, Shefali Sabari. She's the Indian lady who was on all of Oprah's shows talking about the conscious parent. She wrote a book called The Conscious Parent. And she wrote another book called The Awakened Family. And so some of these ideas are consistent with what you will find in those works. So I encourage you to get those. John Kabat-Zinn and his wife Mila also wrote a book called Mindful Parenting. So it's really the same principles expressed in a different way. So we've talked about presence. We've talked about imperfection a little bit, right? So just kind of holding these qualities, I'd invite you this week to really maybe choose one that you're really going to try to embody. So spacious presence is, well, let me back up. In order to cultivate these, no matter which one you choose, mindfulness practice is important because it helps to open up our hearts and minds in a way that allows us to let this in and to be aware of when we're maybe violating some of these principles for ourselves, and that we can reconnect to them. So the first one I'd like to talk about is spacious presence. And so that spacious presence has to do with the way in which we are holding space when we are in an interaction with our children, or even the way we hold space when we are for ourselves, when we are dealing with a difficult situation, right? So the spaciousness has to do with a presence that allows them space to express themselves and to be themselves, and to withhold this tendency that we have to think that we already know everything because we have a few years on them, or to think that we know who they are so we know how to respond, and to really just allow space. So one way that you can really do this in practice is to wait 3 seconds after you finish a statement and hear them, or to wait 3 seconds after they speak. See what's coming up for you and just ask yourself, is this really serving me and my child, or is this just another way for me to grab onto control or to not deal with the pain that I feel because I see them in pain, or whatever it is. The second one is unconditional love, and I think we all can have that, but it's natural. But unconditional love means no matter what disguise you're showing up with today, no matter what is happening in this moment, I will always be there. I will be there even when I'm upset with you. I will be there even when I admire you. And you don't have to do anything special to get my love. And so really just sitting with that. The other one is modeling by example. So we don't teach our children with words, right? This came up in the poem, right? We model based on who we are. So when we are showing up vulnerable in a vulnerable way, we're showing up with full presence, we're showing up understanding that we have flaws, right? So we're kind of touching on the idea of imperfection as well. What happens is that authenticity factor increases. And children are nothing if they don't tell you exactly what they think and feel, right? they will see you from a mile away if you're disguising. They can sense it, they can smell it. And so that opens up the possibility of them being honest with you about who they really are and what they're really feeling. And it also invites them to be authentic themselves, because then what we're saying to them is it's okay to be who you are. You don't have to be somebody else. Embracing imperfection is something that is not really common in our culture, and is something that I think is becoming an idea that people are embracing more. If you're into Brene Brown, she talks a lot about vulnerability. She has an amazing Netflix special that came out a year or so ago. And she also has a famous YouTube video, that a TED Talk that it went viral on vulnerability. I highly recommend if you're interested in kind of exploring that. So you can substitute imperfection, well, not substitute, but vulnerability kind of goes with that idea of imperfection and embracing imperfection and what it means to be human, and that's a beautiful thing. Because if we were all perfect, we would all be the same and life would just be boring, right? And then conscious discipline. In session 4, we're gonna, 3 or 4, we're going to explore this a little bit more. But conscious discipline is about, yes, we can have unconditional love, we can be vulnerable with them, we can give them that spacious presence, and we can set boundaries. So this is the part where we are still the guide. They are in our care. And so how we set those boundaries is important, and making sure that it is coming from a place of unconditional love. It is coming from a place of understanding that they are whole and complete already. They're not here to be fixed. They are already whole and complete. What they need is guidance. And so just sitting with that, what does that mean? What does that mean from moment to moment? It means that it might change, right? The principles don't change, but how that manifests from moment to moment can change. Does anybody want to share any examples, or maybe share which one you're going to hold on to for the coming week? Or try to kind of embody a little bit more? So I think I am going to work on embracing imperfection for myself and my children. So here's where we set a mindful intention of who we want to be. And what I invite you to do is to take a marker and write it really big on a piece of paper and stick it somewhere where you're going to see it. I have a friend that takes her lipstick and writes it on her mirror in the morning, her intention for the day. I put sticky notes all over. I put things on the refrigerator because when I get triggered, I open the fridge, right? So when I put things on the refrigerator, because I know I'm going to show up there when I get triggered by something. And then it reminds me, I'm not here for food. I'm here to feed something else. And then I remember what I'm practicing. So our home practice is to really begin to shift more, because maybe we've been working on this already, from autopilot to aware. And how we do this is to hold that intention, whatever you chose to practice this week. And there are 3 other ways. And you don't have to do them all. You can do 1 or more. The second way is there's a graphic here that says, pick one thing you do every day, such as showering, eating, brushing your teeth, and then take time to notice. Take time to notice what sounds you hear, what sensations you feel, and what is on your mind. So remember when we did the exercise, we kind of went through the 5 senses, and then we addressed the mind wandering. And I told you at the end, kind of feel into your heart space. So you're bringing that same level of awareness to whatever you're doing. So you don't have to stop to do that. You can do it in the midst of an activity. What it means is that you're getting out of your head. You're not planning while you're brushing your teeth. You're actually feeling the water on the bristles in your mouth. All of your attention is right where the activity is taking place. If you're eating, you're really just, where's the sense that's operating is your sense of smell and taste. Just tasting the food, taking your time, slowing down. If you're showering, feeling the water on your skin. So you use what is already in your life. We call it no extra time practices, right? To be your practice. And that as a parent can be a little relieving, because many times we feel like, oh, this is fantastic, but I don't have the time to sit down and do this. I'm busy. So do it in the shower. If you get to shower tomorrow, do it in the shower, right? Do it while you're getting dressed. Pick a mundane activity and see what it does for you. The second way is to, and I highly recommend this if you really want to see changes in yourself over time. Practice every day or as often as you can. So pick a time a day where you have a routine. So maybe your routine is get out of bed, sit on the edge of bed, go to the bathroom. Maybe some of you may have a spiritual routine in the morning where you read something, or you pray, or you do exercise. Whatever that routine is, insert 3 minutes doing the awareness exercise. And don't multitask, just do that alone. So what I recommend, when I was 11 or 12 years old, I started doing this practice of sitting. I went to a school where I learned mindfulness and meditation from a young age. And my practice was every day, twice a day, just sit and do this awareness exercise for 3 minutes. So I would sit on the edge of my bed when I woke up in the morning, and then I would do it again in the evening. Simple. So whatever that space is for you, find the time and do it then. The third way, or the fourth way, because the first was the intention, the second was a mundane activity, the third was doing it for 3 minutes a day. The fourth way is just wake up whenever you remember. Wake up wherever you are. If you notice your mind wandering, catch it. Don't judge yourself. Be gentle with yourself. And just ask yourself, what do I need in this moment? Do I need to take a breath? Do I need to go outside? Do I need to just hang up the phone and not keep talking? Do I need to just lock myself in the bathroom? Do I need to order takeout instead of fussing over cooking a meal when they don't really care, right? When it's time to stop, just stop. Whatever shows up in that moment, whatever you need. So just practice waking up more and then ask yourself, what do I need in this moment? So pick something that you'll practice, give it a try. If you fall off the horse, get back on. If you forget, that's okay. I'm gonna share now in the chat. I'm gonna stop sharing the screen so I can share this in the chat. I'm gonna share a list of resources. So a blend of different things, but within there is a YouTube video with me doing the awareness exercise that you can use if you want to, but you really don't need to. We all have this ability to be aware, but if you find it useful to hear someone guide you through, you can use that video, or you can find something else. There are plenty of tools available online. Just make sure it's just a basic awareness exercise, because that makes it a little different. I've also shared, we have maybe 1 or 2 scholarships left for our Mindfulness for Teens, which starts next week. The scholarships are for Black, Indigenous, and people of color, or COVID affected families. So we have 1 or 2 spots left. So if you have a teenager and you'd like to enroll them in a mindfulness class, just go to that link, check it out, and you can apply. If it's full, we can put you on the wait list for the next class, because we do have classes running all the time. The Art of Mindful Parenting's future sessions, if you don't have it, is at that link. I do a Facebook Live every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. So my Facebook page is there. It's just my name, my first name, Nellie, Knelllle. If you look for me, 9 a.m. Eastern on Facebook Live. I do a practice every week just for the community. And if you miss it, the video is usually on there for a few days that you can go back and look at it. So it's just another way to practice with the community. And if you just want to ask a question or you want to check out the work that we do with Aham Education, the website is there, and the my email is there as well. So I invite you for the 1 minute that we have remaining, if we could just breathe together before we leave, and so that we can transition to the next thing. So just right where you are, just connecting to your breath, and in whatever way, just breathe. Taking a few deep breaths, trusting that everything that you heard will be remembered, and that you'll wake up when you need to. You'll remember to practice. And on that note, thanking you so much for your attention.